Adam Zane Cook. Adam Zane Cook is an MFA Fiction candidate at San Francisco State University. He received his BA in creative writing from UC Riverside. He is a transplant to the Bay Area from the Inland Empire. He will most likely sing at some point during this reading.
So I wrote that when I thought I was going to read something else. They're lyrics.
Just sing anyway.
Let's sing. The title of the chapter this is from is a quote from a musical, Little 90s. It's called "There are mouths to be kissed before mouths should be fed." Right, so this is from a novel that I'm working on. It's autobiographical. The main character's Adam. We're not having it's fictionalized, but just whatever. Kayla lived in Redlands for a while, and I'm from Redlands, and we met here, and I think it's appropriate that we read together tonight, and so I'm so happy to be reading with her, and I'm so happy to be reading with Belrose. Thank you.
Thank you.
Okay. The light had been coming in through the locker room windows differently those past few days. It was not that it seemed brighter, or not just that it seemed brighter, but softer, too, cleaner. The weather was cooler. It felt like autumn, like the long Southern California summer would abate. This was a trick of the weather, of course. Every year the weather in Redlands cooled for a bit towards the end of September, and then the heat came back with a vengeance, usually by mid-October, and stayed in the low 80s all the way to New Year. Knowing that this respite of false fall was so fleeting filled it with a sense of dread. Like so much of life, of course, everything ran out, but the good stuff seemed to run out so much more quickly than the bad. The quilts from my grandmother, maple syrup from Vermont, even the sun, the thing that was our hope for a greener, cleaner, solar California, would eventually run out. Light, the very light that came through the locker room windows, was not endless. It had been a run day, that day in PE. Danny Coleman had lapped me twice. The second time he stopped, put his hands against my back, and he said, "Let me help, I'll push you, but you have to run." He did this almost every week. 2 years ago, the first time he'd done it, it had almost been funny, but it was an inevitability now, like the light, like the weather, like the false fall. At least run days would be ending soon. There was only one more year of PE, then the graduation requirement would be filled, and then no more PE. No more run days where Coach Lopez expressed her disappointment with my 16:22 mile time. No more changing in front of Danny Coleman and having him grab my fat, my tits, and smelling his cheap body spray on me for hours after. Trudging into the locker room, my breath just regained, my legs sore, my shirt slick with sweat, I took comfort in the fact that even PE was not endless, no matter how interminable it felt. God is endless, they had told us at church. He represented the hope that there was something beyond the looming black punctuation mark that was death. But what came after that, more of the same, was existence and after existence just one long line? Or were we to, as one of the speakers at church had once said, look to the seasons for our answer, that the way the year repeated itself was a sign from God that we too could be resurrected, which implied rebirth, but rebirth into the same life, into a new life. In 8th grade science, we had to watch a PBS documentary on the Big Bang Theory. The teacher, in an attempt to appease the fundamentalist students, had prefaced the viewing by stressing the fact that what we were learning was a theory, and that none of us had to take it as fact. It wasn't the Big Bang I had a problem with. The Mormon Church didn't have an official policy on it, and the general consensus at church was that there was no problem with viewing God as the ultimate scientist. What was unsettling came about halfway in, when a scientist explained the big crunch, the theory that the universe would eventually stop expanding and start contracting and eventually compact itself into a single infinitely dense mass wherein it would explode and create a new universe. And that the universe had been doing this, making and unmaking itself, longer than time. I couldn't stop thinking about the big crunch and about how the entire universe would look compacted down, Would it be the size of a planet, a comet, a baseball, an atom? Would you be able to see it, and what would it be among? I had asked my mother about it as she was making dinner that night, and she said she didn't like to think about such things, which is what she always said when I brought up questions like, where did God come from, and will I be the same age as you in heaven? I couldn't explain to her how it wasn't just that it made my head hurt to think about the Big Crunch, but that the thought made my body feel weightless and hollow, that my heart felt like it was imploding, and that it became hard to breathe, and that my arms became pinprickly. I couldn't tell her how there were only 36,525 days in a century, how that didn't seem like that many, and how given the average lifespan of the American male, I knew I was bound to see many fewer than that 36,525, and how if I was 13 at the time, and I lived to be as old as my grandpa had, 87, an eighth of my life had already elapsed, and how in such moments, death seemed not only inevitable, but imminent and preferable even, if only to get it over with. Why don't you pray about it, she finally said, and I'll pray too. I told her I would, recognizing that I had reached the end of the help she could give me. She pecked me on the forehead, and I left her in peace. I wanted her to tell me that maybe the Big Crunch did go against the church. Dismissing it outright would have made things easier, like my evangelical friends did with evolution. But if my mom, so logical but so devout, wasn't willing to disown it, then both science and religion confirmed it. The very nature of existence was that there was no meaning, no novelty, just repetition. We were meant to repeat these patterns over and over again, like the Buddhist monks who made the same artwork in the sand every day, only to brush it away. In which case, there needed to be an end point for things to have meaning. Real flowers die, that's why they're prettier than plastic ones. Novels end, that's why they make us cry. But if an end provided meaning, did heaven rob life of its meaning, even a heaven where you were forever separated from your loved ones? I had to pull myself back, out of the polluted swamp of my consciousness, back to the PE locker room, and out of the mud and tar and radioactive waste of my mind. It would be many years before I learned the meditational breathing techniques that help in such situations, and even then, they would not help much. Instead, at that moment in the locker room, I looked to the light. I followed it as it came through the window panels, high up in the PE locker room, and fell on the floor near Chris Demirji's lithe form, caressed only by those thin white briefs of his. How pretty life is, I thought. Enjoy it now, you depressing bore. It was hypnotic, following the neat groups of muscles that ran up Chris's legs, up and down. They were not marbled with jiggly fat like mine. They were neat and spare and fibrous. You could see the individual cords rise and fall, leading into the next group, all the way from his ankle to his calf to his thigh to just above the waistband on his briefs. There was a small razor cut just above his left knees. He had shaved his legs. Just last week there had been a thick matting of black hair running up and down them, but they were bare now, milk white. Is that in now, I wondered, shaved legs? Even the swim team boys only shaved their legs because the coach made them. Shaved legs said a certain thing about a boy. Was Chris on the swim team now, or was he a certain thing? At church, we were told to envision our future families. Not our present families, of course, with our parents and siblings. Those people were preparation. The pupil stage. the pupil stage that would eventually molt off and be left behind in a husky, translucent pile. No, we were always meant to consider our future family, the one that would be composed of the person we married and the children that resulted. Ever present were they, my future family. Every decision had to be made weighing them in mind. College, career, diet, exercise, where to live, whether or not to have a dual income home, and these were decisions that had to be made now. Now, they told us. Women wanted to marry men with a future, whereas men, we were told, wanted to marry women without a past. And the only way to have a future was to decide now, not for ourselves, but for these people who would come to rely on us. My future family always seemed to be composed of those wooden, jointed modeling dolls, the kind with smooth, nondescript features that artists use to draw the human form in different positions. The doll family was not unkind. We always seemed to be sitting around the dinner table in a house not unlike the one I grew up in. The dolls talking to each other in a language made up of scrapes and squeaks of their various joints moving. Earlier that morning, before Christimirji and the locker room and Danny Coleman and the run and everything else, while I was lying in bed, before my alarm had gone off, an anarchic, electric thought had occurred to me. Would I care if one of my children told me they were haunted by the certain thing? Would I tell them God hated them? Would I believe God hated them, spiritual and corporeal duplicates of myself? Would I hate them? Across the room, Christimirji buttoned up his plaid shirt, pulled on his pants, ran a hand through his hair, and for the first time, the thought verbalized to me that he was beautiful. Not just the light, or the hair, or the muscles, but the holistic he was beautiful. And even more so, standing there in the square of light, the sunshine reflecting off his black, curly hair giving the effect of a bronze halo hovering just above his head. Danny Coleman walked into the square of light in front of Chris. Lost in thought, I'd been looking too long. Danny locked eyes with me, giving me a toothy smile, his eyes lupine and hungry. I squinted as if I were trying to see something above Chris. Danny moved. I turned to my locker and started changing quickly. I had to get out of the locker room. I ripped off my PE shirts and shorts, rolled them up into a funky ball, and shoved them to the back of my locker. I grabbed my t-shirt and frantically tried to pull it on. My arm banged against the row of lockers, and my elbow seized with blunt pain. I paused to rub it, and in that pause, Danny darted up behind me. His arms were around me almost as quickly as I noticed them, and they were veiny. "God, you're racked," Danny said, lightly pinching my nipples. "If I had these, I'd be playing with them all day." I followed a vein from the top of his bicep as it ran down his forearm, his hairless forearm. Danny had shaved them. Had they always been hairless, or was Danny on the swim team now too? He didn't have the build for it. In the locker room, other guys chatted, and the teachers in their office at the other end laughed, and these things are so brash in their clarity that the only option sometimes is that they are not the things that they are. I apologize, I am being obscure. When I meet up with friends now, old high school friends, for a coffee or lunch or a drink, they will say, "I always knew, we all did," and I will say, "But no one told me." And they will say, "It was so obvious," and we will laugh, and I will not know why we are laughing. Things hide in plain sight. You do not see Danny Coleman sneaking up behind you in the locker room. You do not see the way your male teacher flirts with the male janitor. You do not see the clear inconsistencies in your religion, the contradictions in dogma, but you know they are there, and you know you are not supposed to see them, so you don't. Meteors swoop past Earth, and scientists tell us that we should have seen it coming. Fascists win elections, and pundits tell us how blind we were to reality, and it might be late at night, and you might have never thought about killing yourself before. You might have seen how easy it would be. You might not have seen how easy it would be via jump from a high ledge, or one of your father's guns, or by running your car in the garage, or any number of frighteningly possible methods to pass from the land of the living to the land of the dead, if there is one, and then suddenly you see it all. Danny brought his mouth close to my ears. "You like this, don't you?" he asked. His lips brushed my earlobe. They were soft and conformed to the curve. The warmth and moistness of his mouth were millimeters away from my skin, and goosebumps spread up and down my arms, and my dick hardened, and in that moment, I realized it always did when Danny grabbed me. In Danny's arms, times went so slowly. They were strong. There was no escaping them, even if I tried. They were sturdy, comforting. I could go lip in them, and he would still have me. "You like this, don't you?" he asked again, softer this time, as if he did care whether or not I liked it, as if he would change if I said no, a little softer. I let my legs weaken a little bit. Danny's arms bulged, the vein on his arm popped even more, and he still had me.